Welcome to Before You Were Born. Today, we're diving into the fascinating stories of those who came incredibly close to becoming the President of the United States, but were thwarted by a twist of fate or last-minute hurdles. Let's explore the lives of these almost presidents and the events that kept them from the Oval Office. Let's start with the 1800s. Daniel Webster, who served twice as Secretary of State, was one of the most prominent figures in American history. In 1840, he was offered the vice presidency on the Whig ticket, but declined, hoping to become president on his own merits. Had he accepted, he would have become president after William Henry Harrison died just 30 days into his term. Moving to 1876, Samuel J. Tilden's story is full of drama. He won the popular vote but lost the presidency to Rutherford B. Hayes in the Electoral College. Disputed votes, especially in Florida, led to a controversial decision, and Hayes won by just one electoral vote, making it one of the closest races in history. In 2000, Al Gore, after serving 8 years as vice president under Bill Clinton, ran for president against George W. Bush. The Florida vote was so close, it required a recount. After a month of legal battles, Bush was declared the winner by just 537 votes. The election's outcome remains a topic of debate to this day. In 1919, President Woodrow Wilson suffered a severe stroke, rendering him unable to perform his duties. His condition was kept secret from the public by his wife Edith and Secretary Joseph Tumulty. Had Wilson died, Vice President Thomas Marshall would have become president. This secrecy changed the course of history. During the Watergate scandal in 1973-1974, it seemed President Nixon would be impeached. Vice President Spiro Agnew resigned due to corruption charges, leaving House Speaker Carl Albert next in line. Although Albert had the power to become president, he allowed Gerald Ford to take the role instead. Nixon eventually resigned, and Ford became president. Nelson Rockefeller, a big name in the 1970s, became vice president under Gerald Ford. He had previously run for president 3 times and was on Nixon's shortlist for vice president. Ford survived 2 assassination attempts, which, if successful, would have made Rockefeller president. In 1944, Franklin D. Roosevelt sought a 4th term despite failing health. The Democrats replaced Vice President Henry A. Wallace with Harry S. Truman, fearing Wallace's liberal views. When Roosevelt died just 4 months into his term, Truman, not Wallace, became president. In 1948, Thomas Dewey was expected to win the presidency. The Chicago Daily Tribune even printed "Dewey defeats Truman" on its front page. However, Truman won in a surprise victory, making the newspaper headline a historical blunder. In the Roaring '20s, Warren G. Harding had just won the election. Harding initially wanted Senator Irvin Lenroot to run as his vice president, but he was overruled. Instead, the position went to Calvin Coolidge. When Harding died of a respiratory infection, Coolidge became president. Some historians believe Lenroot might have been a more progressive leader. Willie P Mangum was the Senate president pro tempore in 1844, making him second in line to the presidency. After John Tyler took over following Harrison's death, Mangum nearly became president when a naval gun display exploded, killing the Secretary of State and Secretary of the Navy. Tyler narrowly escaped death, leaving Mangum's presidential aspirations unfulfilled. Garner almost became president in 1933 when an assassination attempt on Franklin D. Roosevelt missed, killing Chicago Mayor Anton Cermak instead. Had the attempt succeeded, Garner would have taken over as president. He served as vice president from 1933 to 1941, but never came close to the presidency again. Lafayette S. Foster was the Senate president pro tempore in 1865 when Lincoln was assassinated. The plot also included a plan to kill Vice President Andrew Johnson. Had Johnson been murdered, Foster would have become acting president until the next election. Garrett Hobart was the vice president under William McKinley. After Hobart's death due to a heart condition, Theodore Roosevelt took over as vice president. McKinley was assassinated 6 months into his second term, making Roosevelt president and solidifying his place in history. Spiro Agnew, Nixon's vice president, resigned due to corruption charges. Had he not been involved in scandals, he would have become president after Nixon's resignation. Instead, Gerald Ford took the role, with Agnew fading into obscurity. In 1868, Benjamin Wade was one vote away from becoming president. As president pro tempore, he would have taken over if Andrew Johnson had been impeached. The Senate fell one vote short, and Wade missed his chance at the presidency. Hillary Clinton came close to being the first female president in 2016. Despite winning the popular vote, she lost to Donald Trump in the Electoral College. The election remains one of the most controversial in history. Aaron Burr was Thomas Jefferson's running mate in 1800. They tied in the Electoral College, leading Burr to run for president against Jefferson. He lost on the 36th ballot. Burr later killed Alexander Hamilton in a duel, ending his political career. Winfield Scott Hancock narrowly lost the 1880 election to James Garfield by just 0.09%. Despite winning 19 states, Hancock couldn't sway one northern state, costing him the presidency. He continued his military career and led the National Rifle Association. Charles Evans Hughes ran against Woodrow Wilson in 1916. He lost California's votes after failing to meet with Governor Hiram Johnson. This mistake cost him the election, and Wilson secured his second term. Thomas W. Ferry was Senate President pro tempore during the disputed 1876 Tilden Hayes election. Had Congress not resolved the dispute in time, Ferry would have become acting president until the next election, showing how the law can change everything. These stories illustrate the unpredictable and often tumultuous path to the presidency. Many came close but were ultimately denied by fate or circumstance. Stay tuned to Before You Were Born for more intriguing historical tales. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for notifications. See you next time.